The video you're about to watch was made by me, and it chronicles my experience with the pars plana vitrectomy. So it's a particular kind of eye surgery that's often used to correct problems in the eye itself, injuries or disease. If you found your way to this video, it's probably not because you're suffering from an eye injury or a disease. It's probably because you were doing research on the FOV, the floaters only vitrectomy, and you're considering if you even want to go down this path. Well, that was me about a year and a half ago, suffering with floaters. Now, for those of you that don't know what a floater is, I have put some links down in the description field on this video, so you can do some digging there. But I'm not going to explain all these details because this is really for those of you like me a year ago that you're doing your research into whether or not you want to go down the path of a floaters only vitrectomy. So I will take some liberties with this video using terms that won't make sense to everybody, but again, a year and a half ago, that was me. I was looking for videos explaining what it was like from the standpoint of the patient. What was the recovery like? How long did it take? How quickly could I get back to work? What was the pain level? What questions do you want to ask your doctor? So this is for those of you. I regret that it's so long. It's almost an hour long. But I know I would have appreciated having this kind of detail presented to me so I can make an informed decision before spending my money and having an elective surgery of this sort. So I hope the video is useful. I want to start by highlighting some questions that you'll want to ask your doctor right off the top. I asked these questions. So the first thing I wanted to know from my doctor was, how many vitrectomies have you personally done? And in my case, the doctor had mentioned he'd done in the neighborhood of 1,000. So I liked that answer and told him so. And I did apologize to him right up front, saying, I'm sorry that I have to ask these potentially embarrassing questions, but I need to know. So that was my first question for him. My second was, how many have you done recently? And he says, I do 20 a month, give or take. And again, I thanked him for this, but I wasn't done asking questions yet. I asked him what his success rate was, because the worldwide complication rate for this particular surgery is 3 to 5%, and the complications can be as simple as infection. Well, some of the infections are not very simple. They're quite wicked and can lead to blindness. The complication potential could also be blindness outright from not being careful with the instruments that end up being poked into your eye and physically making contact with the retina. You can have cataract develop 6 months or sooner after the surgery, directly related to the trauma that was caused by the surgery. So I asked him, what's your success rate? And his reply was interesting. He mentioned, well, most of the time I deal with this surgery, I have sick eyes I'm working with. And your eye isn't sick. You haven't had any trauma. You haven't had any disease in your eye. You're just getting rid of the floaters. And so even though my complication rate is really good, better than the worldwide average, you can expect much better than that, given your eye is healthy to begin with. And then the last major question I asked him was, now who would be doing the surgery, you or an understudy or some such? And he confirmed that it would in fact be him. So with those issues out of the way, I went back home, got on the internet, and did a bunch of research. I just wish I had the resource that is this video available to me back then. So that's why I've done this. I apologize in advance. It doesn't have a whole lot of special effects. It's pretty dry. For those of you that aren't interested in this surgery, you're not going to want to watch it. But for those of you that are contemplating having a doctor stick 3 needles in your eye and suck out all the vitreous, the jello, that's a big decision. And I suspect you're going to want to know what it was like to go through that. This is a 6-month chronicle. It starts with an hour or two before surgery and ends with 6 months afterwards with a very positive outcome. So I don't want to say I hope you enjoy it, because it's not the kind of thing you enjoy talking about or listening to, but I hope it's informative and helps you make your decision. So here I am on my way to the Mitchell Eye Care Center for a floaters only vitrectomy. My very kind, beautiful, loving, ever so concerned wife is driving me because I can't drive my way back here. And so it's going to be my right eye, this one right here, that gets the surgery, and it probably looks like it doesn't need it. You're right. Floaters only vitrectomy. So more than a little nervous. Why would you take a perfectly good eyeball and poke it with 3 needles? Well, I thought about it a lot, and I feel like I can justify it based on the hope of a floater-free vision afterwards. So there's the before. I think the after will be the pirate look. Going for the patch.
Hoy matey.
Yeah. R. Anyway, here we go. So I've had the vitrectomy now. It's all over. According to the doctor, it went well. A couple of interesting observations. First of all, my blood pressure was high heading into this. And
70 over 110.
yeah, like that's super duper high for me. And it's high because it's stressful, thinking they're going to poke needles into a perfectly good eyeball, besides the floaters. So anyway, they gave me a sedative to relax me a little bit, and that helped after, of course, taking my blood pressure. And then they give a needle, and the needle goes into the face in the socket area of the eye and numbs the back of the eye. So the needle goes around the eyeball itself and numbs in around the retina. Now, I understand from other vitrectomies, this isn't the normal procedure, but my doctor, Patrick Mitchell, opted to go that route. And then they wheel me into the operating room, tape a thing over my face with an opening for my eyeball, and a bunch more drops to numb the eye. Then they gave me another needle. And at this point I'm not seeing a whole lot anyway because my eye is completely dilated. And anyway, the bottom line is they give me another needle, and at that point I can hardly see anything, just mostly white. So they must have used some kind of an apparatus to hold my eye open, right, to keep my eyelids stretched wide open. Never felt it, not even a bit. Would never have guessed they even put it on me. And then I definitely noticed them insert the 3 instruments, the infusion device, the vitrector, and the light pipe. So I could definitely feel that. Told them so, could feel it, but there was no discomfort whatsoever. Just I could feel it. You can feel the doctor push on your face as he's guiding the needle through the eye and leaving the trocar behind. What gets really interesting is when he starts using the vitrector to suck out the vitreous. No doubt about it, I could clearly see, absolutely clearly see the vitrector itself, the end of the vitrector. You can hear it when it turns on. It makes kind of a grinding noise. And there's also a sucking noise that it makes as it sucks in the vitreous. And they can adjust the vacuum on this unit up or down as needed. And as it turns out, as they were trying to induce a posterior vitreous detachment, they couldn't. There was a portion of the vitreous that he was about to give up on. I could totally see him going after it, and explained this to him. I said, hey, there's a little tail down there. That tail's kind of wagging about. Clearly it's not tight. So he would go after it with the vitrector, and I could see the vitrector coming in from the side, like this, and there's a little squiggly thing that he goes after, and the squiggly thing gets sucked inside the vitrector, and there's wiggling going on, and I can hear the vacuum start to stall out, and then lo and behold, if he says, no, not going to work. And so I said, well, from my perspective, there's another spot above where you were at that also seems to be loose and might be able to be sucked up. So he went after that. So he spent probably 15 minutes just going after the vitreous that was attached to my retina, the back of the retina. Anyway, the bottom line was he finally got it. At one point, he injects a dye into my eye, and I says, oh, Mo, it looks like I'm having maybe some blood enter my eye because I can see a whole pile of floaters now. He says, no, not to worry. That's just the steroid that allows us to see more clearly the vitreous and get it out. So it's quite a show. Kind of reminds me of Stargate at Atlantis, where they've got this whole wormhole effect, and you're seeing everything kind of in silhouette. Hard to imagine because there's no lens involved. The light's inside the eye, the instruments are inside the eye, the lens is outside of the field of view, and yet you're still seeing all of this happen. So quite the process. The pain was minimal, although I understand I'm going to be in for a real treat this evening. And they do recommend that you take plenty of ibuprofen, 400 milligrams, every 4 hours, and start before the pain begins, because they figure this evening is going to be a miserable one for me. I did end up with a small bubble in my eye, even though there was no detached retina involved. The small bubble is part of Dr. Mitchell's standard protocol. So I can see it. If I close my eye, I can see it. It's basically halfway across my field of view right this minute. And if I look down, I can see the curvature of the bubble. And the instructions for a bubble when I don't actually have any tear is just any position for my head is okay other than on my back looking up. So I know that with others that have a problem and they've inserted the bubble to facilitate healing, you're supposed to be face down as a healing posture. Not my situation at all. So I think that about covers my observations. While they're still fresh in my mind, I wanted to capture them here. The whole operation took a while. Most of it's waiting though. Waiting from one facility to the next to the next. But while I was on my back, I bet you I was in there for 45 minutes to an hour, no more. Anyway, hopefully this does somebody some good. I'll report in later as I get more feedback from the doctor and the results of the surgery start pouring in. But I can say, I can see, when I close my eye, I can see out my bandaged eye, and I can see a completely clear field of view. And I know that this would not have been the case because my floaters were right smack in the middle of my field of view. Totally see them being sucked up by that vitrector. Very cool. Well, it would be about 2.5, 3 hours since the surgery now. And freezing is, I think, just starting to come out. How does the eye feel? Pain? No. Like having swam in a pool with strong chlorine. And so the eye feels bothered. Not that bad. Definitely bearable. But I've got a ways to go yet. So we'll see where things are at here shortly. But in the meantime, certainly based on the discomfort associated with the surgery, a couple hours out, and it still seems to be relatively benign. So if this is as bad as it gets or a little worse, I would say easy peasy. So I'd like to talk a little bit about pain management. It is now the next day. My surgery was yesterday at about between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's now the next morning at around 7:30 in the morning. I'm going to be heading off to an appointment to get my eye checked. This is the first of several series of follow-ups. And I'm in more than a little bit of pain. So the anesthesiologist had some advice, and I didn't follow it exactly. Here's the problem. Right after surgery, I'm a little bit tranquilized from an IV tranquilization, and I'm dealing with an injection that went into the eye socket to numb things, as well as whatever they had done in the operating room. So I was feeling pretty good, I would say. You know, kind of like having a little bit of, I don't know, shampoo in your eyes, a little bit of a, not the sting sensation from having shampoo in the eyes, but after a minute or two, you've washed it out, now you've got that dull ache in your eyes. That's kind of the sensation, and it stayed with me like that for quite some time. Why? Because I followed, at that point, the anesthesiologist's advice, and I stayed ahead of the pain curve. She said, take ibuprofen every 4 hours, take Tylenol, and don't get behind the pain curve. Well, unfortunately, overnight, my last pain meds were probably at, I don't know, say midnight, and at 6:30 in the morning, I was in some discomfort, no doubt about it, and to the point where hard to keep both eyes open at the same time. If I did open both eyes, very hard to do anything but look straight ahead. Trying to move my eye, of course, moves the eye that's also covered, and I imagine that's not good. Certainly didn't feel that way anyway. So my advice to anybody else contemplating the vitrectomy: do what they say. Don't try to experiment with how bad the pain is unmanaged. Manage the pain as you go, and don't get behind that curve. So we'll see what they say when they check it out, but I can tell you right now, I don't even know how I could possibly keep my eye open. I'm in so much discomfort for them to do the examination. So we'll see what kind of tricks they have to be able to see
what the result is of their work. I can say this though, I did sleep reasonably well overnight. The bubble that I had in my eye is totally visible. Of course, it's inverted, right? You see the meniscus is what you see, and but everything's curved this way. And if I look straight down, then all I see is basically a big circle, a meniscus. And even in the pitch black, I can see that. How can you see that? Well, I suspect that there's probably some touch sensitivity to the retina, to the macula, because if I move my head around, like right now my eyes are closed, but if I move my head around, I see the meniscus. It's moving kind of up and down like this as I move my head up and down in the reversed arc, right? But there's a little bit of an after image as well, based on where the meniscus goes, and then it disappears. So that after image suggests to me that the eye might have a little bit of touch sensitivity. So when you're asleep in the pitch black, you also see this thing, and as you move your head around, you see this thing. So it's like, in some respects, having the lights on a little bit. Anyway, I slept reasonably well, but I also awoke several times because of discomfort, because you are not sleeping on your back, can't because of the bubble in there, and so your face is on your arm, and it's pulling on the tape, which is pulling on the patch, which is pulling on the tape over top of your eye underneath. So all things that impact the recovery process here I want to share with you folks. But the bottom line is the line I started with: pain management. Follow the instructions of your doctor, anesthesiologist, and don't get behind the curve. Like me, it's no fun.
Okay.
Well, it's been now about 20 hours since my surgery. I've had my first follow-up visit, and that was quite an experience. It seems like the meds I'm on, the Tylenol and the ibuprofen, really isn't cutting through the pain. Quite a surprise, but the pain is very, very bad. And so when I went to see the doctor for the follow-up visit, I was saying, I don't know how you're actually going to examine my eye. I can't even hold my good one open. Never mind, imagine holding my bad one open. But what they do is they give you some drops, and they're magic drops. They somehow eliminate all the pain in about 2 or 3 minutes, and give you about a 15 to 20 minute reprieve from the pain. So he did his exam, and the eye pressure is fine, and internally everything looks fine. Externally, he says the injury from the wounds is substantial, and that's the pain that I'm feeling. So that's good. Those drops actually help identify that, because if the drops don't work, it says that the damage is internal, whereas if they do work, then of course the damage is on the outside of the eye. So where I'm at right now is a slightly modified prescription of drops to carry me forward. Pain level, probably a 9.5 out of 10. So it's really quite bad, actually, surprisingly so. And as I mentioned, none of the pills I'm taking seem to even cut it. However, he said that by 3 o'clock this afternoon, so that's basically 24 hours after the surgery, the pain level should be very manageable. He says the eye heals very quickly from the kind of wounds you have for the entry points for those needles. And as a result, by 3, if I still have severe pain, to come back in, but he's expecting I should be okay. So we will see. Thanks, Trey.
Okay. Okay.
So it's been just over 24 hours since surgery. My first appointment was this morning. I think I already reported on that. And I was in a lot of discomfort. And they said basically that things should go better from that point forward, and that if I was still in the same amount of discomfort at 3 o'clock, to call them and arrange another appointment. Well, I had to do that. At 3 o'clock I was in huge discomfort, massive pain. If I had to give it a number, it would be between 8.5 and 9.5 out of 10. So Tylenol 3, didn't touch it. Ibuprofen, 800 milligrams every 4 hours, didn't touch it. So I went in, they gave me those magic drops again, and they checked out my eye, and sure enough the doctor said I had a corneal abrasion, which he had noticed previously, but this time his notice was that the corneal abrasion had sloughed off. So I think
in layman's terms, what that means is that one of the 3 wounds from the 3 instruments inserted in my eye, one of those wounds had a flap, and instead of healing, it actually sloughed off. So what does that mean? Well, he says it's a disappointment, but it will heal perfectly, is what he said. So I'm optimistic that things are still on track, just a minor setback along the way. So on a pain level now, him having dealt with that, it's only about a 4 out of 10, so it's gone down dramatically. And all I can really attribute that to is him saying, first of all, we're going to change the drops, we're going to give you an antibiotic, and then 2 different steroids, and then an ointment. And that ointment seems to have actually offered some relief. Plus he said, don't move your eyes around. Even with them closed, don't try to distribute the drops or the ointment or anything. Just keep your eyes closed and stationary. So that's part of why I'm like this now, is I'm keeping my eyes perfectly still under the eyelid. Less abrasion, less of everything. So hopefully we're going in the right direction. You might wonder now why I'm not wearing a patch, and I won't be. It's because of the frequency of all of the drops. You're constantly having to add drops, and they have different schedules as well. 4 times a day, 3 times a day, 2 times a day. And so wearing a patch would mean you'd be constantly pulling the tape off, putting the tape on. Wouldn't be practical. So at this point, I'm going to be patchless, but for the most part, eyes closed. At least for the next day, most of my time will be spent with my eyes closed, giving everything a chance to heal properly. Next right.
Okay. Okay, so we're recording that eye. I'm going to just go over to the other one. See how that looks normal. Okay. Do you want to try and, open it at all? Okay, that's it. All right.
So in just another couple of hours, it will have been a full 48 hours since my surgery, and I'm feeling a whole lot better. My wife says it looks like I've been punched in the eye just 1 time instead of twice now. So, I don't know, it looks pretty bad to me still, but how it feels is far more important, and it feels a whole lot better. It turns out that that epithelial abrasion was the source of all of my pain, and so it's so nice to have that behind me. I would say I'm right in the meniscus between discomfort and pain. Now, the caveat is that that is with, let's see, up until this point, 2 Tylenol 3s every 4 hours, and 800 milligrams, or is it units, of ibuprofen every 4 hours. So that's not without pain management, but the management is actually working right now. It sure wasn't working when I was dealing with that epithelial abrasion. Also just came from another visit and to the doctor, and they were checking out my vision, so I can see when I open it, and it's hard to open, but there you go. Looks pretty gross. I can see I got some crap there. Lots of goo in the eye too, by the way, from an ointment that they had me put in, but the ointment was to deal also with the epithelial abrasion, and did. It actually helped. So where I'm at with this surgery, well, my wife asked me, given how much discomfort I've been in over this, would I do it again? I can't say yet. Jury's still out. I've got to see how sharp my vision is, corrected with glasses. If it's as sharp as it was, and minus the floaters, then yeah, I'd say I'd do it again. But I do some things differently. As it stands now, I would definitely not get behind the pain curve. And after surgery, my 2 cents worth is just leave both eyes closed all the time. Just open them for drops and eating and whatever else you got to do. Leave them closed. You know, you might think maybe some usage would help heal the process along. I don't think it did. In fact, I think it aggravated the problem I had at my cornea and made it worse. So my 2 cents would be just forget about doing anything. Don't catch up on emails. Don't even open your eyes for the ride home. Just leave them both closed. That way neither eye is moving, following anything, and I believe would give you the best chance at a rapid recovery. Anyway, still early in the road to recovery for me, so more reports to come.
So it is 3 days now since the surgery, almost to the hour, and definitely feeling a little better. Here's what an eye looks like post-vitrectomy that's feeling a bit better. Still hard to hold it open, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So, yeah, it doesn't look very good, but it is feeling better. The swelling has gone down, and I can feel that, and that feels better. And just the general pain is much better. Right now it feels about the same as if I had squirted it with lemon juice 3 hours ago. So, how does that feel? Irritated, but by no means a problem. And that is without pain meds. So 2 o'clock last night was or this morning I guess, was the last time I took, would have been Tylenol 3. And since then I've decided to wean myself off altogether. And it's going well. So I think I'm done with the pain meds, which is a nice step forward. How is my vision? Well, I still have a bubble. The doctor felt that it should be gone tomorrow at some point. Don't know. Can't say I feel the way it looks now that it will be. Looking straight out at the horizon like I am right now, the bubble is here. And the meniscus is about that kind of an arc. So a fairly substantial arc. It's not flat like it was to begin with, which suggests it has gone down a little bit. But I just can't see it being gone by tomorrow. Vision quality. Obviously I need glasses, and with glasses I can now make out individual shingles in the house across the street, and the siding, the breaks in the siding, for example, I can make out. It's not 20/20, not even close, and my vision was quite a bit better than that prior to the surgery. But I'm optimistic that as the swelling continues to go down in the eye, my vision will return to, like they say, where it was beforehand. Any floaters? Not a one. And you know, I would have been happy if only the floaters in my field of view were gone, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Those of you that suffer with floaters will know that you move your eyes around and these things swirl all about. I can deal with that. I can't deal with one that parks right smack in the middle of my field of view, and at best only moves a couple of degrees off to one side or the other with work, me moving my eyes around. So, perfect. So I'm optimistic. Things are going the right direction, and at day 3 I'm feeling like, I don't know, maybe come Monday, so this is Saturday, come Monday I might spend a portion of my day at the office and start recovering from all of the backlog of things that I've left behind there. So anyway, more reports to come. Well, it's Tuesday, so it'll be a full week tomorrow since the surgery, and my eye is feeling a lot better, especially in the mornings. It seems like towards the end of the day I have a fair amount of eye strain from closing it, and I'm done. But waking up first thing in the morning, after the eye's been closed for a period of time, with the last thing I do being drops before I go to bed, those have a real chance to soak in, and I feel pretty good first thing in the morning. How is my vision? I have a couple floaters. They're very small, transparent floaters, tiny little things that do not bother my vision at all. You can see through them actually, kind of like, I don't know, microbes on a microscope slide. Not blocking my vision at all, which is the kind of floater I had previously that caused me to want to take the chance on this surgery in the first place. But it's a fact. I have a couple that I can see. Still have a bubble. Now the doctor felt the bubble would be done on Sunday. This is Tuesday. I still have a bubble. I suppose it's a little bit smaller. It's taking its time. But noteworthy is when I woke up this morning I had a couple of smaller bubbles too. Little tiny things next to the major big bubble. And for some reason they don't all integrate together into one. They seem to have surface tension or something, and they're staying separate. Anyway, something I noticed. Work yesterday. I went in the afternoon, and my goodness, I had a massive headache after just an hour. Just the drive into the office in the bright sunlight. Really tough. Really tough. I had eye strain before I even began my day, and towards the end of the day I was done. Headache, sore, I wanted to stay closed the whole time. So
probably was premature for me to hope to get into the office, but duty calls. What else? Tomorrow is my next checkup tomorrow morning, and we will see what the doctor says, but I suspect he's going to be pleased with the way my eye is healing. The one thing I will say about my vision is while it is getting better, it's only getting better incrementally now. So I look out over my phone to the house across the street, and I can see the shingles, individual shingles, but nowhere as sharp as my left eye. And it was better prior to the surgery than my left eye. So I'm expecting better vision than this. In fact, if this is as good as my vision got, minus the floaters, but if this was as good as it got, I'd be disappointed. Anyway, my chronicle of my vitrectomy journey continues. So it's been just under a week now. Let's see, I had my operation done around 3 o'clock on Wednesday, and it's about 1 o'clock on Tuesday. And I'm off to work. So this is the get-up I got to use to get to work. Sunglasses, which I do like in spite of throwing them around like that. Regular glasses, and my pie ball here. So I didn't notice this before, but I've got a bit of yellow effect going on the inside portion of that eye. Pretty red underneath it. So that's what it looks like. Pretty light sensitive, lots of eye strain. Even with my glasses, of course, my prescription is not right for my right eye. And so really, if I go driving to work, I'll be there in about 20 minutes, and I'll have a headache already. And then working in front of the computer screen for about 3 or 4 hours is about all I can really handle, based on yesterday. So that's kind of what I'm in for. I do have floaters, a couple. It's kind of tricky because I have not just one bubble now, but 3. One major one, and then a couple of little ones that for some reason don't integrate into the major one. Even if I wiggle my eye around, I can see them with my eye closed. I can see them all kind of try to merge, but they don't. Anyway, I've got one bubble. It's a bit different than the rest, denser. I'm pretty sure it's a bubble, not a floater per se, because it tends to also go the same direction of the floaters. In other words, it rises regardless of which way I've oriented my head. That floater will rise. So it's not debris, it's a floater that's floating, if you will. And I don't know, denser than the rest, darker. So hopefully all it is a bubble, and it'll go away. But besides that, I've also got other little tiny bits of debris in my eye. I really don't want to pass judgment too soon here on that, but none of it is debilitating, none of it is in my field of view, but I can see as I move my eye around, there's little things in there, about as transparent as a cell looks like in the slide of a microscope, but visible. Not these black spidery web-like gauze that led me to get the surgery in the first place, but there's stuff in there. So, interesting observation, I guess, not a deal breaker by any means. My appointment is tomorrow in the morning, and we'll see what the doctor thinks. But the pain level has gone way down. Drops feel good. Wake up in the morning, eye feels good. It's starting to feel a little bit of strain now, and in a couple of hours at the office, I'm sure I'll be feeling not so good at all. Driving is a chore, but that get-up you saw me with as I started this particular sequence, that's what I need to wear to keep the light down, because internal reflections off of the bubble get all over my eye and basically wash out what I see. Not impossible, because I can still see, but it makes it difficult. So that's me checking in on day 6 of my vitrectomy. Well, I had my my 1-week follow-up visit today, and doctor says everything's healing up very nicely. So that was good to hear. He's looked at the epithelial abrasion, and he says it's 100%. Looked deep inside my eye and found no indication of any problems whatsoever. Still have a bubble. In fact, at this moment I have 2.
but they're visibly smaller, which is a good sign because that tells me that if you can see the difference in size, the volume is going down dramatically. So per him, he expects another 2 days, and the bubbles will be a thing of the past. Eyes get sore come the end of the day. In fact, I have things I should be doing right now. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and I should be busy at a meeting, but I got so much eye strain it's not even funny. I typically end the day at about this hour with a bit of a headache, and the reason is because the eye that had the operation is, even with glasses, its vision is poor. And as a result, I'm not quite one-eyed through most of the day, but it's kind of like that. And of course the other eye has floaters, so there's definitely some strain, and I feel that strain as a kind of mild headache beginning about 6 o'clock. Now, doctor says I should be off work for 2 weeks, and as you know, I went back to work, operation on Wednesday, went back to work for a part day on Monday and Tuesday, and now Wednesday. And today I spent from 1 o'clock until well, 5:30. They're taking care of necessary things, and I definitely feel it. There's no doubt about it. I feel far better the more time I spend with my eyes closed. But what are you going to do, right? What else? Oh yeah, during the conversation with the doctor, I recalled for him something he said during surgery. He was having trouble getting the vitreous off of my retina at one place, and I could see the whole thing unfolding inside my eye. And he said, well, I'm going to try one more thing before I give up on this piece. And I wasn't able to see what that one more thing was, so I asked him about that today. He said he switched to, he called it a flat lens. And I asked him what that meant, and he said it had a narrower field of view. So I gather it's like a telescopic kind of lens. So his field of view was narrower. He could now see more precisely what he was working on. So I asked him, you know, I really can't tell, as I'm watching you work, just how close your instrumentation is to my retina. How close was it? And this is what I found very interesting. He says at its closest there, while I was working on that one piece, about 1/10 of a millimeter. So no wonders they didn't take it too kindly when I was joking about what if I have to cough or sneeze in the middle of the operation. Their answer was don't do it. And 1/10 of a millimeter? That's some pretty highfalutin, precise work. So I think it kind of behooves the person contemplating this surgery. You want a doctor with optimal hand-eye coordination, no Parkinson's, right? And I don't know, some of the questions I asked my doctor were, how many of these have you done ever? And his answer was around 1,000. I asked him, how many do you do on a regular basis? He says about 20 a month. I asked him about his own personal complication rate. Given the worldwide complication statistic is about 3 to 5%, what's yours? So I put him on the spot a little bit, and I apologize for that up front, but I had to feel good about those answers. And I feel good about having pursued that when I realized just how much precision is required to do this surgery. So you too, if you're following this video sequence, you will probably want to feel good about what's happening there, because the potential for damage, if he makes contact with your retina or macula, is it's a bad scene. You don't want to go there. Anyway, 1 week in, and certainly the pain in my eye is, I don't know, call it non-existent. Certainly not a factor anymore. But the other kind of discomfort now that's kind of raised its head is eye strain, and I am dealing with that. Anyway, done for the day. I'll report in later as new news comes up. I'm going down on my drops. Let's see. I went from 3 different drops, basically 4 times a day, and now a week in I'm down to 1 drop 4 times a day for a month. And then that same drop 3 times a day for a week, then 2 times a day for a week, and then I'm done. So it's a total of 7 weeks on the drops. So my routine is starting to become a little more common and convenient.
it's now been 11 days since the surgery, and time for a little bit of an update. First of all, I noticed the bubble finally disappeared in the middle of the day on day 9. It was just a tiny little dot, very non-obtrusive, and had it at the beginning of the day and didn't at the end. So 9 days is probably what you would expect going through the same operation. And I also want to report that my vision is steadily improving. And by that I mean my corrected vision with glasses. So my eye is slowly returning to its former prescription. That's what you hope for, it's what you're promised. But when I talked with my doctor at length about this, he said, well, you are changing the density of the fluid from whatever the density of vitreous is to saline. And as a result of that, there may be some very subtle change in what you see for a final prescription. Well, I mean, my glasses are not on now, obviously, but boy, I sure see well. I mean, there's no evidence of any dark floater masses at all. There's no evidence of any distortion in what I see at all. So I've heard of horror stories where others had, and perhaps they had the surgery for different reasons besides floaters. In other words, they had unhealthy eyes to begin with. But I've heard of horror stories where the retinas were detached and not put down properly, or whatever the case may be, but the effect was that they now had distortion in their vision. Mine's good. I do, as I have mentioned before, have some floaters, but they are of the transparent sort, not the dark masses. And none of them are in my field of view. All of them are unanchored, so they move around as I move my eyeball, but they don't stay in one spot. And when I mentioned this to the doctor at the last visit, he said, that's because your vitreous had strands in it, like most people's does, and floaters can get caught up in these things, and then other masses join them, and eventually you have something that is semi-anchored. That's what I had, but I don't have that anymore. So day 11, and all is going well. In fact, if things continue the way they're going, I'm very optimistic that I'm going to have the same excellent vision afterwards, minus the floaters. So here's what the eyeball looks like here. And several people have talked about how bad it looks. There's absolutely no discomfort that I'm dealing with now. None at all. It looks like it should hurt, probably, but it doesn't hurt at all. If I look at extreme angles with my eyes, so if I go away, especially to the left or right, there's some discomfort in that situation, extremely to the right, as far as you can go type of thing. But other than that, no discomfort whatsoever. And yeah, even though it obviously is still a little bit swollen, and I think I can detect a slight difference in the iris. One eye is, the operated eye is still slightly more dilated than the other, but no discomfort whatsoever. Come the end of the day, a little bit of eye strain, and that's, I suppose, to be expected with two different prescriptions, but using the same old glasses. But short of that, it's easy. So if you don't have an epithelial tear or some kind of an abrasion, then I would imagine the pain during recovery would be better than my experience. And even then, it only lasted 1 day, which I spent most of drugged up on Tylenol and slept away the day. So for what it's worth, it's looking pretty good. I'm more and more optimistic as time goes by. Well, today is Wednesday, so that means it's been a full 2 weeks since my surgery, and nothing new really to report. My vision is getting slowly better. I think it's pretty slow these days, but my eye is still bothered. Like if I, let's see, look this way, I suppose. So obviously I'm still dealing with the effects of some swelling. And so, well, I also think my eyes are not exactly the same as far as their dilation goes. Yeah, it's hard to see, I think, in this light, but I do believe that my operated upon eye is still a little more dilated than the other. Don't know why. I haven't had a chance to ask the doctor about that, and I won't for another, let's see, a couple weeks, I guess. And I'm not worried about that at all. Just curious, and I would expect that would have some impact on vision. I don't know if it's widely known, but when you have drops in your eye and they're dilated, you don't focus as well. And even if this eye is slightly dilated, I suspect that it's having an impact on my visual acuity as well. And I've done a few tests. You know, if you can make a pinhole and look through it, your vision, if you need glasses otherwise, your vision is actually improved. You can simulate a pinhole by just making a tiny little hole like this and then look through it. And if you see more sharply, you know your vision is generally okay. It's just that your corrective power is wrong. So I think so anyway, that's what I'm interpreting. So I've done that numerous times and I see very clearly, without distortion and with good acuity. So I'm very optimistic that as my eye starts to stabilize and perhaps I need a new prescription, but once I get it, I'm very optimistic that I'll be ending up with the same quality of vision that I had before the operation. I do have floaters, and none that bother me the same as, not even close to the same as before the surgery, but these are new floaters. They're a new type of floater. They're not dark masses. I've mentioned this before, but I've got more of them now. They're mostly transparent, and they don't anchor themselves in my field of view, but they're there, and there's more than last time I reported. So little bits of debris that are floating around in there, and you know, would I say it's disappointing? Not yet, but if it continues to go that direction and I get more and more of these things, then I'll have distractions, and you know, glad to be rid of the thing that actually eclipsed my vision. But these other distractions, I wasn't really expecting them, and so something to report on. Anyway, that's it for now, and I'll probably let another couple of days go before my next report, unless there's something to say, something happens. But otherwise, I'm going to decrease the frequency of reports and just wait for major moments. So a quick update before I head off to the office here this morning. It's been 3 weeks and 2 days since my surgery, and I can't ask for more, really. My vision has returned to, I would say, 95% of what it was before the surgery in the operated upon eye. Very sharp with my old prescription glasses. And the pain, of course, is completely gone. At the end of the day, it still feels tired, but it's not no eye strain or whatever. I do have some floaters. I've mentioned this several times. I don't think I have any more than the last time I reported about a week ago, but I do have some. They're, again, nothing to cause me to say the surgery was not a success. In fact, if I had to rate it right now, today, I'd rate it at 95% ecstatic for the outcome. And the reason it's not 100% is because of those floaters primarily. I'd say the epithelial abrasion I had was also part and parcel of why I wouldn't give it 100%. But whatever, it's the outcome I think that really matters the most. And the outcome is that I have none of the pre-surgery floaters, none whatsoever. And the floaters I do have are small, translucent, not opaque, so I can totally see through them even though I see they're there. They are noticeable. They're, I would say, a potential distraction, but of the things that I like to do outside of the normal run-of-the-mill that require good vision, you know, hiking, skiing, and flying radio-controlled jets, playing badminton and tennis, what I've got going on right now for floaters has zero impact on those sports and those activities. So 95% success, I think, is about right. So yeah, I probably could have reported this a couple of days ago on the anniversary, the 3-week anniversary, but the bottom line is things are going extremely well, and I'm looking forward to getting that 1 month report in on with the doctor and getting his feedback. But I suspect I'll be 2025, is that right, or is it 2015? Whichever the record is that indicates I have better than 20/20 vision. I suspect I'm right back to where I was before, and I'm only 3 weeks post-surgery. So it's looking like it's a success story. Something else I noticed too is about in the last day or two, I would say the last, the unequal dilation between my two eyes is gone. So now both eyes have exactly the same pupil size in the same lighting conditions. So hopefully I'm showing this okay. And then underneath don't know if I'm picking up very well, but the bottom line is it still doesn't look like it feels very good. But as I reported previously, there's no impact whatsoever from what you see. I have no discomfort at all. Still taking drops 4 times a day. That will diminish to 3 times a day after the 1-month anniversary. And then each week I remove 1 drop per day until I'm finished with them. So it takes 7 weeks to get there in total. And I noticed right after having taken the drops that my vision does seem to change a bit. Hard to say why. I mean, they're steroids, so are they having an impact on inflammation, or are they just another layer of liquid between perfect vision and what I see? So I don't know. But the bottom line is I really can heartily recommend the surgery, and it's only been 3 weeks. So hopefully this is helpful with your own decision-making process. So today is 5 weeks after the surgery, and not a whole lot to report. I just felt it's been 2 weeks since my last, so I thought I would update things. The eye is as good as I can imagine for clarity and sharpness. Fully recovered, or 95% of my vision beforehand. I noticed that at the end of the day, my eye will get a little bit tired, and so not as sharp as at the beginning of the day. And I also notice some difficulty focusing up close. I think more so than before the surgery. I know I always favored my left eye for close work and my right eye for distance, so I have to be careful there, but I think I'm having more difficulty focusing up close in my operated upon eye. So how does it look? Let's see if I can... Hard to tell, but the bottom line is it feels wonderful. No discomfort whatsoever, and I think healing along very nicely. So he's going to ask me next week what I think of the surgery, I'm sure, and I'm going to tell him that I'm 90% ecstatic and 10% disappointed with the floaters I've got now. Minor in the bottom right-hand quadrant, so floaters down in here, maybe 3 or 5. One fairly significant one, a squiggly, and I'm thinking it might be migrating closer to my retina because it seems to be more prominent now than before. However, rarely is it ever crossing my field of view. I'm aware of it down here. I will offer this though, playing tennis, playing badminton, what a joy. Compared to before when I had trouble tracking the ball or the bird, what a joy to be able to follow the bird and make proper contact with it over and over and over again. By no means perfect. I think I'll have to relearn part of my game because of the floaters. But I caught myself thinking, at the beginning of each point before, I used to throw my eyes to the right and then back and serve. And the reason I would do that is to move the floaters off to the side and then quickly get in a point, hopefully, before they recenter in front of my field of view. Didn't have to do that anymore. And the same thing with flying RC jets. My remote control jets were proving to be more and more difficult because I just had trouble tracking them. And several times in a single flight I might find myself uncomfortable with not being able to see the jet clearly and know its orientation. Anyway, what a pleasure to be able to fly a very large aerobatic routine well above my head, well below the field of view in a valley, and never once worried about not seeing the jet clearly and wondering about its orientation. So, good news, I think, through and through. And I'm looking forward to the visit next week where I can explain things to the doctor and see what he has to say about the future. Anyway, there's my update for this week. Well, this is my 8th week since my surgery. I had my 7-week checkup last week. Doctor had confirmed that everything was really, really good. So my next appointment is now 6 months away. But basically, I think I can close the chapter on the videos chronicling my observations on this whole surgery. I basically will probably leave it at this unless I develop a cataract later on, in which case I'll append to this video. So I'm happy. I confirmed with the doctor that I was among the first in Calgary to have a vitrectomy for floaters. Still not a common process by any means here. But I'll tell you, if you're athletic, if you're bothered by poor vision, if what you do for a living is impacted by these things, it's quite despairing. But It doesn't need to be. So vitrectomy is a very viable solution. Mine was under $4,000 for one eye. I don't know if there's any countries that would somehow insure you for this kind of thing. So it's not a small fee by any means, but I truly believe it is a good solution. When I corresponded with the doctor doing laser vitrectomies in California, I asked him outright, what would you consider to be the gold standard? And he did say the vitrectomy, pars plana vitrectomy. So, bottom line, it's all good. And if you can cope with the price, if you can cope with a little bit of discomfort, and in your mind you can deal with the potential problems that could develop, and you can do that. I wouldn't call it gambling, but I would call it risk management. If you can deal with that, then this is a very viable solution for those of you suffering with debilitating floaters. So I'm going to call that the end of this video. The doctor that did my surgery is Dr. Patrick Mitchell here in Calgary, and I can heartily recommend him.
Well, it's been 6 months since my surgery, and I just reviewed the last video segment I made 6 months ago, well, I guess 5 months ago, and I realized I said that I wasn't going to report any more unless it was a problem. So I just had my 6 months checkup, and no problem. So no sign of a cataract, which would be the major concern this far after the surgery. And my vision is every bit as good as it ever was prior to the surgery with glasses. The evidence of problems, I don't even know if there's any point in even trying to show that my eye situation here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is indicate there is zero evidence of ever having had the surgery. It has healed perfectly. No sign of scar tissue or bloodshot or anything. I want to talk a little bit about floaters, though. At various points in my video, I know I mentioned that I had evidence of some floaters here and there, squiggly lines and opaque and translucent and so forth. Now 6 months later, I have just two. So the squiggly line that I mentioned earlier, gone. I know I'd mentioned I had as many as maybe 5 in my lower right quadrant down in this area as I look at the camera, so not in the field of view. I only have one there. It's a dark one. It's tiny and it's very mobile, and it'll wiggle all around down in this area here as I look at the camera, depending on what I'm doing with my eye. Obviously it's stationary if I don't move my eyeball, but if I'm moving my eye, it can move all the way up. It might even come close to my field of view and then reacquaint itself with that little home down there in the corner. So not a problem, but an observation. And then there's the other floater, the one that is most translucent, and it is, okay, let's say I'm looking at my nose, right? It lives right here. And it's about the size of a penny, I don't know, 50 feet away. So small, really, really small, and not a problem. But it's there, and in fairness, I think I have to mention that it didn't go away. The others that I mentioned at previous places in my video, they have all disappeared. So obviously I'm ecstatic with the outcome, and I would do my other eye too. Just waiting for the right time. Now during my last visit, all the good news came with another laser tomography. So I had a laser tomography at the beginning of the exam, prior to the operation, and then I had another one just the other day. And I wanted to share those with you because they reveal just what this surgery accomplished and how bad my situation was prior to. So what you're looking at here is would be considered a normal laser tomography. It's what you would see if you were able to look into my pupil and see the back of my retina. And so, you know, all those blood vessels and whatnot, they're normal apparently. Each of these green lines, if I understand the explanation correctly, are a place where you can tell the computer you want to see everything but a slice this way instead of this way. That's why it's called tomography. And so over here you see the back of my eye in profile. And from what I understand, if I've understood things correctly, This is where the vitreous would be normally in here. Now it's saline solution or what have you, tears. And this is the back of the surface of my eye. And the technology has the ability to look past the surface a small ways. So that's what I understand is going on here. And this is a normal one, apparently. There's nothing unusual going on here. Now I want to show you the before. So here's the before. Look at this. Look at all this mass here. So that's what the laser sees when it sees a floater. I wouldn't say that's what I see or saw as I was looking out at the world through that mess. I saw more localized problems, localized floaters, individual floaters with some clumping. This makes it look like there's just this mass that you can't possibly see through. And I would say it's not quite what I perceived. But then if we look at the sideways slice in my eye, look at this. I asked about that. And they said it's a shadow. And the laser couldn't see through to the back of my eye in that spot. And that is why there's no detail there. So here you have the before surgery. And I should be able to show the date on this. Yeah, the date up here, May 16th. And then the date on the after was December 13th. And after and before. So that's where your $4,000 goes, is getting rid of all of that. And I have to say, well worth it. So that is it for me. Unless I have any other developments that materialize in the future, I'm going to call this the end of this sequence of videos. Hope it's been helpful.